On this edition of Freedom Journal Iraq, looking at the surge forces as the last group leaves, and the sound of the Iraqi National Symphony Orchestra. Don't miss these stories and more in today's FJI. Hello, I'm Air Force Sergeant Braden Smith. Welcome to this edition of Freedom Journal Iraq. The surge groups provided great help in Iraq, but as security becomes stable, the need for those groups is gone. Petty Officer Nathan Gomez tells us about the work of one of the last surge groups.
Multinational Force Iraq spokesman Brigadier General David Perkins talked about the last of the surge groups leaving the country. One of the final goals was to help in the Harar Rajab area.
As I met with residents of Harar Rajab, Iraqi Army soldiers in the 2nd Brigade of the 3rd Infantry Division, they described how Harar Rajab had come back to life in the last 8 months. A year ago, Harar Rajab was a ghost town. Al-Qaeda and Iraq terrorists had destroyed farms, kicked residents out of their homes, overrun houses to store weapons, and used the community to stage violent attacks against security forces.
The partnership between Iraqi security forces and the 2nd and 3rd ID was vital in helping clean up Harar Rajab. Not only did they force Al-Qaeda in Iraq to leave, but they helped the local residents stand up and provide security.
We are currently at the lowest level of security incidents in more than 4 years in Harar Rajab. However, part of the mission of security forces in this area was to sustain security gains with reconstruction projects and economic development programs. Besides protecting the local population, Iraqi and coalition soldiers learned how to help revive the local economy and help return people to work.
Along with assisting the ISF, the 2nd and 3rd ID gave residents training in such areas as plumbing, masonry, electrical work, and carpentry. Petty Officer Nathan Gomez, Baghdad.
Art and culture was once at the center of Iraq society. Recent years have had a dramatic effect on them. However, times are rolling back. Airman First Class Shaylin Jordan takes us to an event bringing culture back to Iraq.
This room at the Al Rashid Hotel in Baghdad will soon be filled with sounds of music. The U.S. Embassy in Iraq is hosting the Iraqi National Symphony Orchestra to highlight music from both Iraqi and American composers. Music rang through the room as service members and Iraqis alike were witnesses to the artistic and cultural exchange of the symphony. The concert wasn't only for entertainment, but to show an alternative to war and a way to make a better life for Iraqis.
This is a civilized approach towards a better life in Iraq, and it's for people to decide whether they deserve a better life and they decide to live a better life or not. This is one of the paths they may adopt towards a better life.
The orchestra has been through many hardships on their journey to preserve a place in the Iraqi society for culture and art. Even during the concert, the orchestra had to overcome the electricity going out in the building for a few minutes. The orchestra only paused until the lights came back on and carried on with their performance without missing a beat.
I'll have to probably publish 5 books to explain and extrapolate, or maybe to exploit what the problems are. But no matter what the problems are, as I said, we preserve the momentum and we keep going and we keep working.
The Iraqi National Symphony Orchestra is one of the oldest orchestras in the region and has been together since the 1940s. The orchestra is currently only performing in the Middle East, but hopes to travel to the United States in the near future to share the sounds of Iraq with the world. Airman First Class Shaylin Jordan, Baghdad, Iraq.
Coming up, treating Iraq's livestock to prevent disease. Stay tuned.
Here's your raid report. Joint forces detained 58 suspected al-Qaeda in Iraq and killed 4 members during an intelligence-driven search operation in the Nineveh province. Iraqi security forces detained a suspected al-Qaeda in Iraq terrorist in Babylon. The suspect is allegedly part of a cell involved in improvised explosive device emplacements, sectarian violence, and weapons smuggling. U.S. soldiers weapons cache in the Rashid district of southern Baghdad. The cache contained nitrous oxide tanks, a fire extinguisher filled with homemade explosives, and pressure plates used in roadside bombs. Iraqi National Police discovered a weapons cache in northern Iraq. The cache consisted of a metric ton of nitric acid, 150 pounds of unknown explosive materials, mortar rounds, projectiles, tank rounds, and rockets. And that's your raid report. I'm Senior Airman Michael Williams. Here are the latest Operation Iraqi Freedom headlines.
The war has not ended, and U.S. troops still have a role in Iraq, but 2 years after the war seemed lost, the Iraqi government and its U.S. allies are now able to shift focus from combat to building the fragile beginnings of peace. The Mahdi army has been profoundly weakened in a number of neighborhoods across Baghdad. Residents say they welcome the rule of law and are tired of the militia's extortion, violence, and price gouging. The Council of Representatives has formed a special committee to examine several issues related to the provincial election law, including the status of Kirkuk. U.S. forces fought the militia in the town of Balad, and the community rose up against al-Qaeda in Iraq. Now the economy is recovering, and the U.S. military is helping locals establish Iraqi businesses in secure areas. Those are your headlines from around the region. I'm Airman First Class Shay.
The heat of Iraq provides a huge breeding ground for parasites and disease. Army Sergeant Denise Wright shows us how a coalition and Iraqis are doing their part to help rid the country's livestock of disease.
Iraqi Army and coalition forces aid local veterinarian and farmers during a veterinary assistance operation in Fatawa, Iraq. IA and soldiers from Bravo Company 135 Armor Regiment provided security July 14th, while an Iraqi veterinarian, a veterinarian with 445th Civil Affairs Battalion, and soldiers from Alpha Company 411th Civil Affairs Battalion administered veterinary care.
It is our duty to serve the people in this area and any other areas that needs it. Frankly, the people are happy with the process, which makes me feel good about the mission.
The veterinarian and soldiers visited area farmers at their homes to vaccinate cattle and sheep for internal and external parasites and diseases.
I would love to thank you for the help and support you're providing us here today. Normally we buy our vaccinations from the local market, as we know it helps for better appetite and prevent fever from happening.
411th Civil Affairs Battalion soldiers, 411th Medicine, and Major Freddie Zink from the 445th Civil Affairs brought experience as he provided overwatch and guidance for the local vet.
The farmers get the benefit of it, but a lot of time it's just helping the vet get going and get him back being sustainable. But there's so many veterinarians unemployed in the country right now.
The vets treated over 200 sheep and approximately 20 cows as the combined team visited a local marketplace and 2 farms during the 6-hour mission. Captain Eric Morton, Bravo Company 1st of the 35th Armor Regiment commander, says his company's first operation of this kind went well in spite of the slow start at the market.
This area is so secure now that lets the soldiers get out and lets us interact with the Iraqi Army. Just get out to the locals and just show them that we have other services we can provide for them.
Captain Morton also says he will do more veterinary assistance operations in the future. Reporting from Patrol Base Lions Den for the 3rd Brigade Combat Team, 101st Airborne Division Rockasans, I'm Army Staff Sergeant Desiree Wright.
To serve one's country requires sacrifice and dedication. Army Private Rebecca Lampman has the story of a U.S. soldier moving from the classroom to the cockpit.
He was called back to active duty approximately 6 months ago.
One of the first 6 aviators have been called back up from the IRR since World War II.
Major Donald Kreider was teaching high school physics in Seattle, Washington, but now he's rescuing soldiers on the Iraqi battlefield.
We give those soldiers a little bit of reassurance every time they go out that gate that someone's going to get them.
That somebody is a Black Hawk medical evacuation pilot assigned to the 126th Aviation Regiment. He stands ready every day to transport soldiers to medical care if they need it.
But it's surprising to be back in the cockpit again after so long.
After being out of the Army for 5 years, Kreider finds himself supporting the Long Knife Brigade until December of this year. Reporting for 4th Brigade 1st Cav, I'm Private Rebecca Lampman, Camp Adder, Iraq.
And that wraps up this edition of our program. Be sure to log on to mnf-iraq.com, where you can learn all about the progress coalition forces are making throughout the country. If you have story ideas, we'd love to hear them. Just email us at fji@iraq.centcom.mil. From all of us here at AFN and Freedom Journal Iraq, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.